I have been anticipating Assassin's Creed Mirage closely since it was first announced way back in September 2022. Since then, I have been watching and following along all the leaks, rumors, news, and reveals from all the sources I could find because I was interested to see if Ubisoft could actually pull it off. As a longtime fan of Assassin's Creed, the franchise has always been an important one for me. I've played every mainline Assassin's Creed game to date and have loved almost all of them, and yes, I even liked Odyssey. But for the most part, I had been yearning for a bit of a return to the roots experience for Assassin's Creed. After I played through Assassin's Creed 1 again recently, I found that feeling growing even stronger than before. For me, Assassin's Creed has always been a franchise that I have appreciated and loved. The entire style of playing as a master assassin in a stealth-focused game was always a big thing for me. Although the RPGs did prioritize combat over stealth, I still tried to tailor my gameplay to stealth more than anything else. But of course, a game that caters more to stealth would have been preferable by me. And of course, I did want a back to basics experience again because I was missing that from Assassin's Creed. So when Assassin's Creed Mirage was announced as being just that very experience, of course my interest peaked. Valhalla just wasn't as satisfying enough of an experience for me, so I hoped that my next adventure would be far more suited to my tastes. And finally, Assassin's Creed Mirage has come out, and I have to say, there's some good and some bad about this game for sure. But enough of that introduction. Let's just dive right into Assassin's Creed Mirage. Did Ubisoft do a good job at going back to basics, or was it just a flop? Assassin's Creed Mirage starts us off with a bit of an introduction about who Basim is by William Miles from the modern-day storyline of Assassin's Creed. However, after that, the modern-day story is dropped and the rest of the story plays out solely about Basim. We start Basim's life by seeing him in the middle of a nightmare sequence where he's being haunted by a djinn. It's pretty creepy, but I like the addition of it in the game, and it adds a bit of a different dimension to his story. Basim's friend Nihal wakes him up and tries to help him calm down after his nightmare, and the pair then head to a man named Darwish to get information about a job given to them by the Hidden Ones. The Hidden Ones have asked for someone to head down to the docks and steal a specific but important ledger. Nihal refuses as she doesn't want to run cheap errands for the Hidden Ones, but not Basim. Basim is obsessed with the Hidden Ones and he really wants to join them. He does get his wish eventually, of course, but under quite possibly the worst circumstances maybe ever. More on that a little later though. Basim goes solo, but this mission serves more as a teaching method for the stealth and eagle vision mechanics of the game. Eventually, once you find the ledger, you head back to Darwish, who's talking with a woman dressed in assassin attire. Obviously, we know that this is Roshan. Now, Basim gives the ledger, and instead of, not saying anything else or just accepting the payment, Basim proceeds to give everyone playing secondhand embarrassment and tries to sell his skills to Roshan in a bid to join the Hidden Ones. Roshan basically ignores him, and Darwish and Nihal both say to Basim what we're all thinking. Basim then tells Nihal that he wants to go to the Khalifa's Winter Palace to steal some black chest he saw at the docks that looked pretty important to the Hidden Ones. Basim thinks that if he can successfully steal it, he can give it to Roshan and then will be allowed to join the Hidden Ones. Nihal, instead of being a voice of reason this time, decides to help him, God knows why. Anyways, Nihal and Basim head to the Winter Palace and successfully sneak inside. They then see the Khalifa meeting with 5 men dressed in Babylonian-inspired masks, talking to each other. The men see something inside the chest that's obscured from our view, and then they leave as quickly as they came. Basim manages to get into the area once it's clear, and he opens the chest. Nihal is spotting for him, and then Basim finds a strange disc-like object inside of the chest. He picks it up, and it starts playing a strange projection of sorts. The Khalifa suddenly comes out and tries to attack Basim because Basim basically screwed him over with with the masked men, but Nihal just kinda kills him. She kills the Khalifa. I know she was trying to protect Basim, but sheesh, that's a wild way to start the story. Basim manages to narrowly escape and he heads back to his home, falls asleep, and has another strange djinn dream again until he's awoken by Roshan, who asks him about the disc he got from the Winter Palace. She then offers for Basim to come with her, but Basim basically says he won't go because he needs to find Nihal, who had gotten separated from him in the midst of the chaos. The entire area that Basim lives in is in a state of unrest, as guards search for Basim, and they are not leaving anything unturned. Basim comes upon where he used to hang out with Darwish and the kids, and he finds that all of them are, as is customarily seen in Assassin's Creed, very, very dead. It's pretty brutal. Nihal finds Basim, but Basim blames Nihal for the deaths of all of the children, even though technically it's all Basim's fault, let's be fair. I get that he's stricken with grief and is pretty depressed over the deaths, but like if he didn't go into the palace, none of the fallout would have happened, I'm just saying. Basim goes to Roshan, but he's ambushed by two guards who are about to kill him, but Roshan saves him, and then yeah, that's the beginning of the game. After that, Basim wakes up in Alamut and is training to become a hidden one. Most of the game's plot revolves around Basim needing to take out the members of the Order of the Ancients that he had seen in the Winter Palace. Along the way, you obviously uncover a lot of things that I can't say, otherwise I'd be spoiling the game. But there is no modern day stuff in this game. As I said earlier, Basim is the central point. Some people have critiqued the story, others were okay with it. For me, it was an okay story, nothing revolutionary or insane for Assassin's Creed though. This piece definitely is the most important part of this review, and that's because the biggest focus of the Assassin's Creed community has been on the gameplay formula of Assassin's Creed. Ever since Assassin's Creed Unity and Syndicate took a nosedive for the franchise, Ubisoft felt like they needed to do something with Assassin's Creed in order to have it evolve in some way. Of course, there's a lot of things that did work out in Assassin's Creed's favor with Origins, seeing as the Origins formula would only be expanded upon for the next few titles. Mirage comes right off the backbone of Valhalla and was originally intended to be a DLC of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but it was later decided to be turned into a standalone game due to the size that the developers were anticipating they'd need to curate. There are a lot of aspects in Mirage that are basically Valhalla copy-pastes. For instance, the standard movement and sprinting is largely the same as it was in Valhalla. The parkour movements have some overlap, of course. The combat is a bit different though. You see, yes, there are some things that are relatively the same across both games. However, what I did notice was that somehow, and I think this mostly has to do with map design, but somehow the parkour felt a lot better this time around. It felt like there were more parkour opportunities in Mirage, allowing for a full parkour-based experience to be had. Baghdad is designed to be a bit denser and more vertical, which I did notice for sure. This, in my opinion, dramatically enhanced the gameplay experience I had with this title. The parkour was pretty smooth and had some great aspects to it, like the corner swing, pole vault, and other nice new features. There obviously were not many features like wall ejects, but for the most part, the parkour works well for the setting and is much more enjoyable than the experience I had in, say, Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Odyssey. I felt like the parkour of Mirage did include a bit of flair to it, so I did notice that there were some nicer animations. I will say this though, if you're still expecting this game to have Unity-style parkour, you should probably reduce your expectations, because the parkour in Assassin's Creed Mirage is very much not the same as it was in Unity. And look, although Unity parkour is great, that system had its downsides too. So Mirage has its own parkour system that is certainly inspired by the older games, but isn't exactly the same as the older games. The combat was probably the weakest aspect of Assassin's Creed Mirage's gameplay. Although I liked the system of parrying and whatnot, the combat wasn't very fun. In all fairness, I do see that this game is definitely designed to be stealth-oriented, but I wish that the combat was just a bit better to play through. It turns out that you can use different swords and daggers in this game, which is great. Obviously, you can see that I frequently like to switch out my swords because I like the variety of blade designs in this game. I do mostly use the Prince of Persia sword and dagger just because, I mean, I already have them, so why not use them? But the others are really cool as well. I'll get into the customization just a bit later. Assassin's Creed Mirage may lack in combat, but it makes up for that in its stealth. I personally really enjoy enjoyed the stealth in Mirage, and I could instantly detect that this game was a stealth-first game over anything else. Being able to sneak around is relatively the same as in other Assassin's Creed games, and it's not really that different, but it invoked a lot of the feelings I had when I was playing some of the older games. I mean, yes, it may not be as intensive on the stealth as, say, Assassin's Creed 2 was, and you can't use the hidden blade in combat, but the stealth system in this game feels almost like a mix between Assassin's Creed Origins and the older Assassin's Creed titles. However, I will have to provide one critique about the AI in this game: they're not very good. I've had several instances where I'd basically break the AI because if I was fighting one soldier and I moved, say, slightly to the right, the soldier would just act like it couldn't see me anymore. It was definitely jarring, and I had to say that this wasn't a rare occurrence. The AI was not very smart in this title, to be honest. However, the detection is so much better in this game than when I played Valhalla at launch. Mirage's AI actually detects you at a fair range, and not when you're like 5 feet away. It makes the stealth aspect of Mirage more enjoyable because the stealth is actually promoted. And yeah, stealth is always promoted in this game over full-on combat. You're encouraged in several missions to find alternate routes to map how you'll get to your target. You can do things like bribe merchants, use underwater tunnels, take a certain route over another into the area, and so on. Additionally, the marksmen in this game do add a lot more stakes than you'd think they do. Trying to use Enkidu comes with more pressure, as if you can't scout out an area from above, you'll actually need to use eagle vision and actually try to take out that marksman first. Assassin focus, which is definitely the most controversial part of this game from the trailer days, was probably one of the features I ended up liking a lot once I was in the actual gameplay loop itself. You have something called assassin focus, and you can charge these bars up through gameplay. Then you can use them to plot out a double or triple assassination depending on how many bars you've unlocked. This will allow you to take out a small group of guards really easily, as you won't need to worry about sneaking up to each person. It did come in handy, especially when I had to deal with a marksman and guards around him. The tools are probably the most awesome part of the gameplay experience, and I think this mostly attributes to the fact that they really do enhance stealth. I loved being able to take out guards with the throwing knives from a distance, using the smoke to take out a crowd of them to grab some shards, and using other tools to get an advantage over my enemies in difficult situations. The tools, I would say, enhanced the gameplay a lot, and they really made the stealth more exciting, and I personally felt like it was more interesting this way. They provided new avenues and alternatives to certain approaches and could easily help out in a difficult situation. Plus, by upgrading your tools, you can get some additional pieces and features with those tools. For instance, you can equip poison on your throwing knives, which allows for passive damage to be dealt in case your one hit didn't take out the guard or enemy you're attacking. In case you're wondering, like the older Assassin's Creed games, you cannot attack civilians, otherwise you risk desynchronization. I know Odyssey let you do that, but you cannot do that in Mirage. There's no bounty system either, it's just a wanted system. Speaking of that wanted system, you have a few levels that change the way people and guards react to you. If you're wanted in some capacity, people will notice you and try to call for the guards to come and arrest you or take you out, basically. Some will run away, and you'll see posters with Basim's face on them that you can tear down to reduce your wanted level, but people may see those posters and then point you out to the guards. Guards, upon spotting you at a certain wanted point as well, will likely call for backup. You can reduce your wanted level by tearing down those posters I mentioned earlier, or paying off someone called a munadi, who will basically drive attention away from you. In order to hire groups or pay off the munadi in Mirage, you can't just use the regular currency of the dirham. You actually have to use these things in the game called khidma tokens, which are the currency of the working class of Baghdad. These allow you to also reduce merchant shop prices, but different tokens work with different groups, so be careful. You can get these tokens either by pickpocketing people or by completing contracts where these tokens are given to you as a reward. Pickpocketing in Mirage is a bit different. It's not just like hold down one button so that you can pickpocket a person. It's a bit of a timed game where you press to pickpocket and then you have to press again within a certain range so that you can successfully pickpocket the person. If you don't successfully do it, they may call the guards to try and arrest you. Customization in Mirage is as it was announced to be. You have different outfits and costumes and outfit dyes, and you also have talismans that you can wear on your back in the game, or you can buy different ones or earn ones that symbolize your rank in the hidden ones. The outfits come with some sort of stat bonuses or perks that can give you an advantage in things like health or stealth. The costumes are merely cosmetic and go over your outfit. When you wear the costume, your perks that came with the outfit you already had on do not go away. So you can swap the appearance, but keep the perks. The two best outfits so far in the game for me had to have been the Abyssid Knight outfit and the Mulad outfit. These have been the coolest in terms of look and have some good perks to them as well. My favorite costume has to be the Altair outfit, which you can unlock in Ubisoft Connect. You can also use the Basim Valhalla costume as well, so you can look like Basim from Assassin's Creed Valhalla if you want, but you can only unlock this if you've actually played Assassin's Creed Valhalla on the same Ubisoft Connect account. For the most part, these little customization features really do add a lot to the overall vibe of Assassin's Creed Mirage, and I really liked being able to use different outfit dyes to make my outfit feel more authentic to me. For example, I used the black Abyssid Knight dye to make my Abyssid Knight armor look even cooler than before. You can get this dye by solving an enigma. You can also buy dyes from merchants around Baghdad, and you can upgrade your weapons at the blacksmiths in Baghdad too. You can find upgrade schematics in chests and throughout Baghdad, which you can use to upgrade certain outfits and things you have on you. The skill trees and the perk system works really well, and it isn't bloated. It makes sense this time around and has helped enhance much of my gameplay experience thus far. For the most part, the gameplay is solid, and I can't really find much wrong with it aside from the weaker aspects of the combat system. I mean, it's really only a one button attack and one button block and then long press for a heavy attack, and it's not the best, but the stealth definitely makes up for that weaker aspect in the game. The Baghdad map was a very interesting one to navigate and traverse, and I actually really liked the map a lot more than I did the map in Valhalla. It wasn't exactly small, but it wasn't also so bloated and massive that it was intimidating and, well, boring to deal with. Although the map was restricted to one city, it wasn't like this city was small at all. In fact, there are a lot of areas to explore and a lot of things to see in Baghdad and around it. You can find chests, treasure maps, enigmas, loot, and so much more. You can really immerse yourself in each region of Baghdad because of how much there is to do in almost every region. The buildings are so much fun to traverse, and the parkour system helps with that a lot. I personally really like the attention to detail Ubisoft put into designing Baghdad, and it's actually a pretty accurate representation, visually speaking, of the city back then. Walking around, you have benches where you can blend like you could in Assassin's Creed 1, there are bazaars, police stations, mosques, and so much more. And on top of all of this, the Arabic in this game was actually pretty good, which is crazy because Assassin's Creed has had a tendency in the past to have really bad quality of Arabic dialogue in its games. Now, I personally did play the game in the full Arabic dub with English subtitles. I did play some of it in the English version, but the subtitles were relatively accurate, so you won't lose out on the story or anything like that if you're playing it in Arabic. I just personally felt like the Arabic dub had good voice acting and overall sounded better than the English voice acting. I do know that Basim's actor in the Arabic version is actually a famous Middle Eastern actor, so they definitely did a good job with the casting. And I felt like his voice was a bit more natural for Basim. That's just my personal opinion though, but I felt he conveyed emotion a bit better. In all fairness, I do sometimes prefer to play games in the native language of where they're from. So for example, Metro, I played those games in Russian, I played Assassin's Creed Unity in French, I've played Atomic Heart, that game, in Russian as well, so I usually do prefer to put the game in the language of where the game takes place, just because I do tend to feel a bit more of that immersion factor. There's a lot of subtle details in Baghdad in Mirage that is really amazing to see. For example, sometimes if you're walking around outside in the game, you'll actually hear the Muslim call to prayer, or the Adhan, and it's actually tailored specifically to the one that they use in the early morning prayer, which is a really small detail, but good on them for researching this stuff. I really liked the historical things strewn throughout Mirage's map. I usually am not a huge fan of reading a lot in games, but I actually found myself sitting there and reading the history stuff in Mirage because it was really cool to see how life was like back then. I know that there's no discovery tour like there was in, for example, Origins, that's what I know. I believe Odyssey had one as well, but at least we do have something like this. And I think one of the best aspects of Assassin's Creed is its navigation of history while still teaching you something as you enjoy the game. It's not just a fun game, but there's actually some educational value to it as well, which is really cool in my opinion. Although the map was nice and the world was cool, there were some issues I had with the visuals, but this mostly pertains to the realm of character models. I understand that Ubisoft Bordeaux is a smaller studio and their budget was limited when it came to this game. Obviously, if you study a bit of project management, you'll know this, but sometimes you just have to trim out and skimp out on some things in favor of others. So for instance, it's clear that they focused on the level design and map design much more than character models, and I can't really blame them, but it is something that is more noticeable. Though the lip sync I felt was a bit better this time around than it was in the trailers, so I do think that's good. And I'm not sure if this is just me or something, but I felt like the visuals did get a bit better after the first part of the game. Like once Basim gets into the hidden ones, the visuals somehow got better to look at. Maybe that was just me, I'm not sure. If anyone watching this did play the game and noticed the same thing, let me know in the comments below. Some of the characters did look a bit weird at times, but I guess it's better than some other games I've played recently. Realistically speaking, this game does resemble Assassin's Creed Origins in a way. It had a similar vibe and feel, but it also has the same feeling as Jerusalem or Damascus from Assassin's Creed 1, so it does from a map and visual standpoint combine things from the new and old games. Assassin's Creed Mirage may not have been a complete and total return to the roots, but it's definitely a good step in that direction. Mirage has a lot of components of the new games still embedded in it, obviously, because it's still built off of the same engine as the RPG games. But at the end of the day, Mirage does take a lot away from the earlier games and implements it into this engine. The parkour and stealth alone made up for the faults in this game, as I was enjoying just traversing across the rooftops of Baghdad for hours on end, taking out guards and searching every inch of the city to find the chests and more. I think it's great that Mirage wasn't so bloated like Valhalla. It gave you the chance to actually enjoy the gameplay and the story and the world all at the same time without feeling like it was a chore to complete the missions. I was more compelled to actually try and play through all the side missions this time around and not just the main story. I would say that if I had to sum this game up in one quick sentence, it would be this. It's like Assassin's Creed Origins, but in the style of the earlier Assassin's Creed games. Assassin's Creed Mirage does have weaker aspects to it, but the stronger aspects for me were strong. And as I played through this game, I actually found myself unable to stop playing. There's just something magnetic about the world of Baghdad that even if the story is a bit weaker in an overall grand scheme, the world really makes you want to play it. Personally, I thought the story was alright. It certainly wasn't revolutionary as I said earlier, but it wasn't so bad that it made me hate this game or anything. Overall, I will say that there's never really been a single Assassin's Creed game that I despised. Perhaps when comparing them to each other, I may not like some of them, but overall as a franchise, Assassin's Creed is really one of my absolute favorites. And I must say, Mirage is one of the best games I've played in 2023, and I absolutely loved this game. I was saying this for a while after the RPG games came out, but I really thought that if the RPG games just invoked a bit more of the older style, then I wouldn't have had as much criticism about them. And I feel like Mirage kind of addresses that very wish I had. So if I had to give this game a numerical score, I'd say Mirage gets an 8 out of 10 just for the few issues I had with the story and the couple of negatives I discussed earlier. But for the most part, this game was great. I really did enjoy it, and I would say that most people who play it will like it. It's got a good amount of both worlds for fans of older Assassin's Creed games and fans of newer Assassin's Creed games too. And with that being said, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed that video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe with notifications set to all so you never miss out on a single upload. Comment below your thoughts on Assassin's Creed Mirage. Don't forget to check out our website for gaming news, entertainment, and more. The link to that, as well as all of our other links, are in the description below. See you all in the next video.